It's Steve Cooper's time up at Nottingham Forest. We are here today to go ahead and digest the Monday night game between Leicester and Forest, as we do have a fair few Forest fans that obviously watch the channel, and the Premier League relegation is ultimately tied to the Championship as well, so it is a topic of conversation for the channel. Forest fans, I want to get your take on the current state of the club in the comments down below. Now, unusual stances for a newly promoted club going away to the King Power and losing. There would be no shame in that, but this is a Leicester City side who, coming into this evening, were rooted to the bottom of the Premier League, hadn't had a win all season, were conceding goals for fun and were badly out of form. Had this game gone wrongly for Leicester, there was every chance that this could have been Brendan Rodgers' last game in charge of Leicester. That didn't happen in the end, and ultimately this was two managers coming into this game who were both under massive pressure, and it was Leicester who absolutely showed up for this one. From minute one, they were absolutely all over Forest, and Forest just looked like a disjointed mess that were going to welcome the opposition onto them, wave after wave of attack coming at them, and that's been the case on one too many occasions for Nottingham Forest so far this season. A big shout out, by the way, to James Maddison, once again absolutely electric in terms of his overall creativity, the goals he's chipping in with now, his end product. It's all absolutely incredible, and I mean, surely he's got to be on the plane. He probably won't be because it's Gareth Southgate, but he is on absolute fire at the moment. But with Nottingham Forest, this is a real concerning emerging pattern that's been apparent since the start of the season pretty much now with them. Prior to the season starting, I have to admit I was really positive on Forest's chances of survival. I had them down as the best performing of the newly promoted three clubs, but that just hasn't transpired whatsoever so far, and we'll dig into the game that took place between Forest and Leicester, and also some of the real damning underlying stats in terms of where things have really gone wrong for Forest so far this season. So a big thing that was made of Forest coming into this Premier League season was their summer transfer business. How many players went in, how many players went out, and ultimately how much money was actually spent. I do have some sympathy with Forest when it comes to this, because they were coming into this Premier League season with one hand being tied behind their back because of all the players that went out, the players who they had obviously on loan from last season who proved to be a pivotal part of that Forest squad who they themselves didn't own. So they needed to go ahead and do all of that whilst also bumping up the quality in the squad. Where they sort of went wrong and where they've gone wrong so far is actually gelling all these pieces into one cohesive team while stepping up a level to the Premier League was always going to be hard work. We can see here all of the business they did in the end, and I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, quite frankly. I mean, someone like Josh Bowler coming in the end on deadline day and him being loaned out because they don't have a use for him right now. So an obscene amount of money was spent and all these players coming in. One of my biggest red flags with Forest this season is right here. Players used 24. That signals to me that Cooper isn't settled right now on what his best team is, and why would he be? You know, with all this, these influxes of players that came in throughout the summer transfer window. I think that if we look back on Forest from last season, yes, they had players who were in amongst the fringes of the squad. In total, they used 33 players last season, but if we look at the general minutes played here, Cooper, especially in the second half of the season, was massively fixated on what his best team was, and that was when we saw, you know, Forest properly clicking up into gear, going on this winning streak and just absolutely flying their way up the Championship. This in the end being his most used 11, obviously a few different pieces moving in and out of that. But if we look at this team right now, how much has actually changed since then, and how uncohesive they've actually looked so far this season in terms of the lineups week to week, how much has actually been changing compared to last season when Cooper's whole things were built about solidity, keeping the same personnel. You knew what you were going to get each week with Nottingham Forest. All of that has been completely thrown out the window, whilst also trying to adapt to a new level, which was always going to be a backs against the wall job in the first place. And ultimately, the biggest concern with Nottingham Forest so far this season has been their defensive record. There have been moments where Dean Henderson has been able to bail them out on opportunities, you know, with a couple of penalty saves and, you know, making saves at big points in matches. But the chances they're conceding in each match, how open they're looking in that midfield, and obviously how exposed those centre halves are then going on to look, is probably the biggest concern with Forest so far this season. If we look right here, they've had more shots against them per 90 than any other Premier League club, with an average of 17 shots against them in each game. If we look at the XG against them per 90, that's over 2 goals they're expected to concede in every single match at the moment per 90. And ultimately, you're then, fighting against a real uphill battle when you're giving the opposition a 2-goal lead going into every game, if you are expected to concede 2 goals going into each matchup. So Forest have huge problems at the moment, and this is where we sort of circle back to Steve Cooper. And with this current group of players, would there be another manager who's currently out there who could get a tune out of this group? Now, it really pains me to do this because I absolutely love Steve Cooper. He really was the feel-good storyline of the Championship from last season, where he took over Nottingham Forest from the run he got them on. The previous 2 playoff attempts he'd had with Swansea and going all so close with them, and then finally getting a team over the line in Nottingham Forest. But I think that at times his naivety and probably lack of experience in the Premier League has been shown up so far this season, and that really to his detriment. And I think Nottingham Forest are in a situation where, given how much money they've actually spent, and under this regime at times, how trigger happy maybe they've also been, how ruthless they need to be, and especially in the Premier League as cutthroat as it is. We've seen the Championship an unprecedented amount of managerial changes up until this point. It really feels as if Cooper is running out of time now with the situation that they currently find themselves in, and I'm absolutely gutted for that. So what do Nottingham Forest go ahead and do from this point onwards? If I had to hedge my bets at this one, I do think this could be the end of Steve Cooper in at Forest, if I'm being honest. I think that the month of October should have been identified for Forest as absolutely huge, as being an opportunity to go ahead and pick up some points, particularly if we look at their upcoming fixtures. Obviously, they had this game to go ahead and kick off October, albeit it didn't go their way in the end against Leicester, but a badly out of form Leicester. The next 2 matches, I think, are both fairly winnable given the current situation that these clubs are in, against Aston Villa and against Wolves, 2 other sides who are up and amongst, down and amongst, I suppose, the bottom of the Premier League at the moment and in that relegation picture. And it's just a question of whether Cooper will be afforded those 2 matches to try and show something, because it does feel like that group of 3 games right there would have been absolutely pivotal for Forest and their survival bid this season, before once again the fixtures do take a little bit of a turn when they have games against the likes of Brighton, Liverpool and Arsenal to come in and around the end of October. So if Nottingham Forest were to go ahead and bite the bullet with Steve Cooper, the question then becomes who comes in as his replacement, and who's got the tools equipped really in his managerial skills to go ahead and keep this group of players up, because there is no doubt a hell of a lot of talent in this Forest squad at the moment. It's just lacking any sort of cohesion or defensive stability. I think the bleedingly obvious name that's no doubt going to be linked with the Forest job in the morning is Sean Dyche. For all his faults and for how much people don't always enjoy, watching Dyche ball at Burnley and things like that, he can absolutely set up a watertight defence and get a team organised, in a shape and competitive in the Premier League. And I think that that's what Nottingham Forest need to be at this point in time, because they are becoming the whipping boys of the Premier League, which no one wants to be, especially in Forest's situation with how much money has been spent. I'm sure a manager like Chris Wilder or someone would absolutely love another crack at the Premier League, especially with a side like Forest, but I think that his stock's just fallen off to such a degree with how things have gone with him at Middlesbrough this season, that I don't see that happening like it might have with him in the Premier League job 6 or so months ago. We also saw him being potentially talked about for that Bournemouth job at one point as well. But I think of all the names that are out of management at this point in time, the one that makes the most sense for Forest in their current situation, given their weaknesses so far this season and where structurally they need to go ahead and improve, I think Sean Dyche might just be that guy for Forest, and this could have been the perfect opportunity that he's sort of been waiting out for, to be honest. There is my current take on the Nottingham Forest situation, though. Forest fans, I'd love to get your take on everything going on at your club currently in the comments down below. Where do you go from this Leicester City defeat, and what are your current views and what's your verdict on Steve Cooper at the moment? There's no doubt that he built up a hell of a lot of credit with how miraculous last season was in the Championship, but that only runs for so long, particularly with how ruthless the business of football is, and in the Premier League in Nottingham Forest's current situation. So I really do think that as of recording, this could be the end of Steve Cooper at Nottingham Forest. So guys, thank you very much for tuning in. If you would like to see some more sort of Premier League content related to the clubs in and around the bottom of the league, do show your support on today's video and leave a like. Also, do stick around and subscribe for some regular footballing content, and I'll see you all in the next one.